attended the most recent of these Haneke screenings in Surrey Hills at the Golden Age Cinema. 1989's The Seventh Continent, a film which I had claimed in the past was my favourite of Haneke's works, and yeah, almost definitely. I would have been tempted to place it on a very short list of the very best films yet made had I seen it in 1989, a year which also saw the release of other similar be-all end-all masterpieces, such as Kira Muratova's The Asphenic Syndrome, Peter Brooks's The Mahabharata, E. Elias Mahaij's Begotten, and Shinya Tsukamoto's Tetsuo, The Iron Man. I would claim that this is the most compelling and precise film Haneke ever made on his identified common themes. And considering he sort of just kept making the same film for the rest of his career, with a couple of potential exceptions, there is a case to be made that this was undeniably the author at his most inspired. Whether it is the rhapsodic grace of the cropped cinematography, the way it captures the surface radiance of the subjects whilst their inner malaise becomes gradually evident, yet an ultimate mystery to us, their inner workings, the perfect film or filmography for non-Europeans to assess the contemporary banality of the European end of history. Keep in mind, in 1989, the ending of the Cold War pre-21st century, people did sincerely believe that the 90s, as we understand it, would go on forever, Fukuyama style. I almost feel as though the remainder of Haneke's work diminishes this film in the critical dialogue, as one considers it an example of a theme which Haneke explored several times rather than as a significant masterpiece in its own right. Had Haneke retired after The Seventh Continent, it might singularly take up all of the praise in place of where Haneke's oeuvre's appraisal is now in this hypothetical absent. The one challenge with this film, I feel, is trying to explain it to people who aren't totally geared into the cultural history of Europe, do not feel clinical depression at the prospect of engaging in the market economy or wage labour workforce, or who otherwise care nothing for cinematic composition itself. To explain that it may be considered symbolic could be moot to people who do not understand the purpose or application of symbolism, and even referring to the Seventh Continent or Haneke's tendencies as demonstrating symbolism is potentially reducing it, although to explain it to lay people, the term might well be useful. However, to those who may have, in some respects, had reservations about having kids, which is a large number of people who ought not be faulted for it, they are only human. Maybe the Seventh Continent will make sense to them, a feeling of this is it, of a dull, purposeless monotony that can afflict some once they attain that which they were told to desire and aspire for, a wife and kids, a sense that all expectations were delusional or based in falsehoods and lies. To this contingent, yeah, maybe they will get what Haneke is trying to cathartically display in this work. Obviously, Haneke is trying to infer that there is something horrifying and ugly lurking beneath the surface of the seemingly stable Western European, late 20th century market economic states. Whether one agrees with him or not is maybe slightly irrelevant. What is, at a base level, being proposed is, what if it was? Also, why do we feel some connection to it? Maybe Haneke is drilling into something more eternal and submerged in the Western European, or just human, psyche that has nothing to do with stabilized Western democracies, milquetoast liberal market, economic bird cages, or post-Cold War anhedonia. I would question whether one finds the undertaking interesting as a narrative, filmed, experiment staged, clearly in the first, and then consider whether that is inexorably tied to a certain political reading of the film and of Western Europe at large. Because many dismissals of the film may be tied into this, an assumption that the film scorns or looks down upon stability for reasons related to snooty artistic elitism. Although I would insistently argue that the film can explore these avenues without feeling any such elitism. There is no reason the concept has to be motivated by this, and, frankly, even if it was, the results are some of the most arresting cinema I have ever witnessed, some of the most fuck you I have ever felt at another director, not that I could be considered in the category of Haneke unless I died a couple of years ago at 27 maybe. But even then, that's no guarantee. I like to think I'll make it to Fassbinder's 37. I don't take cocaine or barbiturates, so that's one fate crossed off a potentially very long and horrifying list. Considering everything film technology was capable of by 1989, this is one of the most bold, original, stimulating, relatable, and obviously transgressive experiments the cinema could ever engage in, to the point wherein one wonders why this idea wasn't experimented with before. Presumably, a combination of the idea being too controversial to secure funding, a merging of the adjacent surreal and the ordered realist, which had possibly not been achieved by the 1970s, say, but maybe saw some of its first manifestations in the 1980s, and Haneke may be its most pronounced sire. Von Trier may well be in this category. Polanski may be a prototype, though in some ways Rossellini and Pasolini too. People like Christopher Beau, maybe Gaspar Noé, Bruno Dumont, and Georgi Palfi. Now, the Seventh Continent is likely attempting to communicate some specific concerns regarding Germany, the collective pathology, the feeling that considerate banality is the way to go, radicalism is not worth risking again, who can blame them? And whilst not every radio broadcast played in the film was subtitled into English at this screening, but the words Israel, Palestinians, Prime Minister Rabin, and terror, I couldn't help but overhear, and I think it would be naive to assume that that was an unnoticed coincidence on the director's part. Though whatever the case, I feel the result is one of the most captivating films ever made. My pick for Haneke's most impressive film, 1989's The Seventh Continent. Haneke is a guy whose ardent devotees I consider to be very ugly, contemptible individuals, and yet whose detractors I also consider to be dull prudes and a bit too creatively conservative and rulesy for me. I can't win, essentially. Everything finds a way to annoy me. It's my fault, at least partly. I'm such a bitter wreck that no wonder Seventh Continent appeals to me, and, for better or for worse, maybe it will appeal to you too. Thank you and good night. I wish you the greatest happiness and a perpetual peace.